It's the Musers, the podcast, Cowboys edition, the football friends. George Dunham and Bob Sturm. As we work our way through the offseason, we never have offseason here on Football Friends. I mean, there's something happening with the Dallas Cowboys every day. Could be a signing of a running back. Could be the introduction of a new defensive coordinator. Could be, what the heck do you have to pay a kicker? There's no telling what we're going to face here in the offseason. This is going to be an awesome edition. We're going to talk about the value of the Cowboys running back. We're about to meet the new defensive coordinator, and we've got a special guest that we're going to introduce you to today that'll start getting you ready for the draft. Bob, we're almost to March. It's time to start getting ready for an April NFL draft. That's hard to believe.
It is full silly season, and that means team building. That means decisions of high consequence. And so we are off and running. It is time.
Well, let's meet the new defensive coordinator who's gotten a lot of buzz here in the last week after his introduction at the Star. One Christian Parker, who's made a quick rise through the ranks from college football into the NFL with the Packers and the Broncos and the Philadelphia Eagles, making a big impact in the passing game defense. He's been working in the secondary, but he's worked with some outstanding coaches. And you always want to win your press conference, Bob, if you're a head coach or a coordinator. And I would say, without question, Christian Parker won his press conference, his opening press conference. Can he fix the defense? I have no idea. But I do think the Cowboys did some different things here. They went out, they cast a wide net. They didn't just go out and go, yeah, we've heard of him, and he used to coach as a head coach in this league. And I think Brian Schottenheimer has a lot to do with this search that has netted them a 34-year-old defensive phenom who is widely respected around the league.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think he is very impressive in the way he articulates what he wants to do. That's never been an issue, and I would suggest that in just about every aspect he said the right things. Now, what does that mean? And of course the intrigue of, okay, we often believe that a coordinator can get you to a point, but in reality, this is a spot where you're going to need the horses. I mean, this is professional sports, and we know that you cannot win the Kentucky Derby on a donkey, as they've often said. So get us the horses. He says all the right things. Now let's give him a chance to be successful. I'd like to think that was part of the conversation is, hey, if you come take this job, we believe that you are, the guy. So now we're going to help you out. Let's go. And I'm very excited about that. Now we just need to see it we need to see how the pieces are all going to fit together.
Absolutely. And just for context, last January and February, I was saying a lot of these things about Matt Eberflus. Yes. Hey, this guy's got a great reputation. He's a good defensive coach, and yeah, he can do this. He's fine.
Right. So yeah, I mean that's the thing is Mike Zimmer sounded good at the time. I'm sure Mike Nolan sounded good at the time. So these introductory press conferences, I definitely think there are clues in there. Like, for instance, and I'm sure you want to get to this, but the 3-4-4-3 conversation and just the way he sees the game. There's plenty of little clues out there, but you always have to kind of take it with the same grain of salt of I mean, every guy says, we want to create big plays. We want to get turnovers. We want to suppress explosives. We want to tackle well. All these things. Every coordinator wants to do the same things, which is essentially to distill it down. And by the way, I think you could probably do this press conference where you're like, look, touchdowns are really bad. We do not want to give up touchdowns as part of this defense.
I go you one better, Bob. My defense, we're going to stop the run, and we're going to pressure the quarterback.
That's right. We want to affect the quarterback. We want to own the line of scrimmage. And we want to be physical. Yeah, exactly. And we want to have a mean disposition, and we want to intimidate, and we want the quarterback feeling us, and just all these things. So these press conferences go really, really well. And then we always have to flip it around to it's a bit of a pep rally on one hand, and then on the other hand, you're like, okay, if I'm Christian Parker, how many beans do I want to spill on the very first press conference when there's no competitive advantage to saying anything? So you combine those two things of what else are they going to say and what should they really reveal, and it kind of comes down to press conferences are essentially a promotional item for a sports team to kind of renew hope that maybe this year will be different, right?
Sure.
And so he did very well. I would like to think there's never a moment where you're just staring into the abyss with no answer ready, and you're just terrified and all these things. So he did that, but now we're looking through the clues and we're trying to figure out how does this group of guys fit these ideas. Absolutely.
It is a lot on how you say it, and the way he said it really impressed me. It impressed Shoddy too. This is the first thing we'll listen to from the press conference when Brian Schottenheimer was talking about the interview process, and he says that Christian Parker was the last one they talked to, and he couldn't wait to just dig a little deeper and talk more ball with him.
He was the last Zoom that we did, and as he started talking, it wasn't just him talking about his watches and his shoe game. He got a serious shoe game. Yeah, he got a shoe room. You guys can write about that. He's got a shoe room. Man, every time we talk, we just would get off a call or get off the Zoom and get off the interview, just be like, damn, I want more of that. And I think his ability to develop players is very obvious. You look at what he did in Denver, involved with Surtain, and you look at what they did in Philadelphia, obviously with Cooper DeJean and Mitchell and guys like that. He's done it. And ton of respect for Vic Fangio. He's cut his, teeth under Vic, but he's not Vic. He's got his own convictions and beliefs, and that's what I love about the guy.
Last year, I was thinking, okay, Brian Schottenheimer seems to be a solid guy. Then I heard his first press conference, saw that, I don't know, a dozen players were there. I'll say some of the same things we're about to hear from Christian Parker, the way he communicates, the way he prioritizes getting to know guys as people. Then we'll talk football. But it sounds like he's a brilliant dude, and you can see Schottenheimer's face just light up when he talks about him. And again, I don't think he's coaching here if Brian Schottenheimer is not here. You know what I'm saying? If they would have...
I agree.
If Mike McCarthy was still here, I don't think this is a guy they would hire.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, as you look at the way, this thing is coming together, it's a young, energetic coaching staff. If you just look at the defensive ages, you have Christian Parker at 34, Marcus Dixon is 41, Chidera Uzo-Deribe, 33, the outside linebackers coach. Scott Simons is 40, the inside linebackers. The pass game is Derek Ansley, he's 44. The DBs are Ryan Smith, he's 35. The assistant linebacker is J.J. Clark, 26, and the assistant DBs is Robert Muschamp, he's 29. So average age of the entire defensive staff is 36, 35 years old. And so, I mean, it's in many ways an exact duplicate of the offensive staff you've put together. So, you basically say, let's modernize everything. Let's be the guys who are trying to figure out what's next in this league. And that probably is another clue. Now, we in no way want to be ageist, because I don't believe in that. I think that's one of the sorry things about the media is that apparently you forget football when you turn 60 or 65 or 70. I mean, Vic Fangio teaches Christian Parker everything he knows, and Vic Fangio's like 70 years old. So is the information predicated on being born after 1990? Of course not. But maybe the energy level, maybe the enthusiasm, maybe the ability to relate to the players on a better level. These are all theories, right?
Yeah.
So let's chase this theory and see where it takes us.
Well, his influences are many. You mentioned Vic Fangio, who he coached under, Philadelphia, Vance Joseph, Denver. I told you a coach that I talked to who knew him back when he was a defensive analyst at Texas A&M in 2018. That means he was together with Mike Elko.
Yeah.
So he's had a lot of influences. You're right about the 3-4, but as Parker says here, there are a lot of elements to the 3-4 that he will play.
A lot of them have a lot of similarities but differences. I think foundationally, Vic, Vance, Mike Pettin, Coach Elko, Ajero Evero all came out of a 3-4 structure. I think that once you get past that, from the fronts you build and the coverages you do and the personality on third down, red zone, you definitely have a mentality as a play caller, but I think that it's still going to be designed around the players that you have. So there's different nuances that I've taken from each one of them. And even people outside of that, as I've had extensive studies and you build relationships outside of the circle you've been in that you want to incorporate with what you want to do.
So I think his actual wording at a different point of the press conference was it 3-4 personnel with 4-3 spacing?
Okay, I did hear that.
Was it okay? So just to drill down on that, and again, it's not really reinventing the wheel. The NFL right now defends top down. So what that means usually is you are making sure that you begin by suppressing big explosive passing plays. Now, I can't imagine there's any offense design since the advent of the forward pass that is cool with giving up bombs. But this league,
well, Bob, the Cowboys gave up a league-leading 46 pass plays of more than 25 yards last year.
That's insane. I mean. That's just insane on every level. But so you start with shell coverages. You start with two guys high, and then sometimes going into quarters or going into cover 6, which basically means keep the danger in front of you. And then the thing you have to pair that with, of course, is the ability to stop the run with 4. And that's what Seattle's done. That's what Philadelphia's done. That's what San Francisco's done. Now, we get there in different ways, and we get there with different, alignments and even schemes. But these are the two major principles of modern defense is, 1, we must make sure we are fortified deep, and we will allow you to try to put together a 12, 15-play drive where you're nickel and diming us to death. We want you to try to do that. And then we're going to get some, to use the Jerry parlance, we're going to get some war daddies who can hold their own up front, especially against the run. And then you supplement that with some edge players. But overall, what we're looking for is just to make sure that we play a sound group defense and not like relying on individuals. Even if you have a Patrick Surtain or those boys, Quinyon Mitchell in Philadelphia, for instance, we want them to be able to be in the hip pocket of the guy they're covering, but not necessarily in press man on an island. We want safeties over the top so we can play more aggressive underneath as coverage guys. So I don't want to get too lost in the sauce of what this all means. And frankly, anybody not trying to play a sound defensive scheme is extremely frustrating. And I don't think Matt Eberflus is a moron, and I don't think Mike Zimmer's a moron. So the moral to the story is the principles are both sound fundamentally, but also, George, sort of obvious.
Sure.
And now you have to supplement it with guys who can play. And that's the secret sauce that isn't really a secret. That's the missing ingredients that they have to deal with, is they do believe with Quinnen Williams and with Kenny Clark and with Osa Odigizua and even Solomon Thomas and Perion Winfrey, if you want to talk about it, they feel like they got 5 dudes who can sort of keep the linebackers clean and sort of handle the business up front now in a fundamental way where everybody else can deploy against the pass threats. And then you start to work from there. And then of course, third down is third down. We got to go get the passer.
Now you go get some linebackers, edge players. This team needs some help in the secondary, as we've talked about. We'll talk about that more a little bit later in this week's edition. I kind of like the defense, call me crazy. Just hold your opponent to a lot less than 28 points a game. If you can do
That's
that,
a great
I think I think you're going to be a lot better than you were last year. I also like it when a coach thinks outside the box, talks outside the box. He makes a reference here that I've heard probably 36 coaches reference this literature from the 5th century, I think. And I guess technically it is an ancient Chinese secret, the art of war. But if you go back to Christian Parker, his education, he was a Richmond Spider, and he was a political science major. And he talks about how he has carried that with him.
Obviously, in the political science realm, a lot of the stuff is centered around the debate element or discussion. So when you have those conversations about different leaders in the past, whether it's, on the philosophy side or world leaders in different countries and figuring out different vantage points on why they did what they did, I think it definitely leads into the coaching world, whether it's, your Marcus Aurelius and Seneca and the whole, philosophical realm there with the principle of stoicism and things like that, or just, the art of war and that kind of, military strategy, all those type of things. You see those worlds blended a lot when you come to those different backgrounds. And so the books that I might be was supposed to read that I didn't, you kind of end up circling back to when you get into this.
Seneca. The only Seneca I know is Seneca Wallace. What the heck's he talking about, Bob? He sounds like he's really well-read and he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, he said, I think you, me, and Shadi all immediately said, Seneca Wallace, what does he have to do with any of this? But apparently the Roman philosopher Seneca the younger to get apparently Seneca the older was kind of a spare.
Was he a 3-4 or a 4-3 guy?
I don't know. I think he wanted to mix coverages though, and kind of a match quarters type thing. But yeah, on one hand he's that guy, and on the other hand we hear he's got 500 pairs of sneakers, which is
he's an interesting guy. I like interesting.
498 more than I have. So.
No,
I don't know.
He sounds like a great guy to talk to. I can't wait to talk to him at training camp. I bet he's just one of those guys you just kind of wind him up and listen to him go.
Well, Philadelphia swears by him, and that and that's long before the Cowboys were interested. There was a lot of last year during Super Bowl week when the Eagles were in it, so Super Bowl 59, and won it, of course. He was one of those. You need to know about this guy who helps bring this Eagles defense together. He's the next big thing. And for the Cowboys, especially the year after, they didn't talk to Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen and some of these next big thing in NFL offense, and they hired somebody in the break room, which we like, Brian Schottenheimer, but hiring guys inside the facility always makes me nervous, George.
I know.
And so this year, I don't know. They seem to have said, let's go get the next big thing in NFL defense, and maybe it works great. I hope it does. Now, of course, if it does work great, maybe he's somebody's head coach by 2027 or 2028. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But right now, people do think Christian Parker is the next big thing.
Well, there you go. There's your introduction to Christian Parker. And we'll see. He's got a lot of fires to stamp out here in Dallas. And, it's going to be interesting to see how he puts the personnel together and just how big a jump this team can make. What they can acquire this offseason. And let's go there next. There's a free agent defensive player that Bob is really high on. We'll talk about the possibility of him coming to Dallas. And let's talk about the value of the running back the Cowboys just got a new contract to, coming up next. Okay. I thought Javonte Williams going into last year, Bob, at running back would give them something. I would say he gave me more than I thought. And to me, he was the most pleasant surprise of the 2025 season, outside of how bad the defense was. But I was, from opening night all the way through the season, the offense had its sputters and spits as the end of the season wound down. But I really like Javonte Williams this year. 1,200 yards, almost 5 yards a carry. I really liked it when it was 3rd and 1 or 4th and short, and you had a guy who would fight for yards and get you the first down. I love the fact that they have given him this new deal.
Totally agree. It seems like a fair number. He's at about $8 million a year with the first 2 years guaranteed, and I know many of us could manage on $8 million a year. It's very good money, but it's also about 16th in the league at annual average value for a running back, which do you feel like Javonte Williams is at least league average as a running back? And I would say absolutely. And he proved to us last year, and I feel like I said this a number of times on Football Friends, this guy's a dog, and I want dogs on this team. I want guys who compete, not because there's something in it for them, but it's because that's what they do. That's how they see the game of football is if I put a little bit of desire into this thing, and if I fight my tail off, it's going to make my team better. And I just love guys who are high-effort guys who look like it means a lot to them. And you know, obviously he's got a lot of ability, so it's not all try-hard stuff, But yeah, try hard means something to me, especially in a Cowboys culture where you want to make sure everybody is fully committed to what matters. And so they got one with him. Is he enough at running back? Well, I think he tired out last year. I think after Thanksgiving, he was a little less. Now, we don't know, was he hurt or was he just worn down because not only was he carrying the rock, but he's also trying to defend Dak, and they're sending guys at him and beating him up every week, and that's not an easy part of the job. So as the Cowboys continued to build, we know almost everything should go to the defense. But on the offensive side, do I need a veteran running back like they thought Miles Sanders might be last year? Or do I just hope that it's Phil Maffa or Jaden Blue, or even I think Malik Davis is back for one more year? Can one of those guys? But honestly, two of them are tiny, and the third one is Phil Maffa, who you took in the 7th round, and I think he's like 238, so he actually might be ideal. Heck, he might be more of a fullback type. But you know, when you look at it all. The only hesitation I have on Javonte is just that wear down factor, and that's we can work with that. We can find some, we can find a second running back sometimes on the street, but I think with Maffa, with Hunter Lipke doing more, it's just you just don't want guys like Lipke doing your blitz pickup because that limits what the defense is worried about as far as getting the ball. That's what makes Javonte so valuable is you better respect him as a threat, and then he can also pick up the blitz. That's what you're looking for, which again goes back to that was probably what they had in mind with Miles Sanders.
Yeah. I think they can find a little something, and I would like a little get up and go with my second back. That's why I think Jaden Blue could be, something really valuable for this team. He had a hard time getting on the field, and when he finally did get the rock against the Giants, that was such a ridiculous game.
Right.
But he showed some flashes.
He did.
Would love to see a lot more of him. And did Malik Davis not at least show that he can play in this league and he plays teams?
Absolutely.
I think between those three, I think you're good there.
Yeah, you probably are. Malik, though, is, again, he's barely 200 pounds, and we know Jaden Blue is under 200 pounds. And so my only issue, Javonte's like 220, and Miles Sanders, I think, is probably, say, 210, maybe 212, something along those lines. So again, if you're picking up an NFL linebacker and I get down to 200 pounds or 195, it's a mismatch. And so they can sort of try to hold up, but if you do that 5-6 times a game, they're going to be, the Coyote and Roadrunner bit where you're using a spatula to get them off the off the highway at a certain point. So maybe they can grow into that. But that's the thing about getting. I don't want to say gimmick running backs. That's a bad term. Let's say gadget running backs. If you're taking gadget speed guy running backs, Jaden Blue, and of course they also have Javonte Turpin, who's kind of a gadget wide receiver. He weighs 155. Yeah. So I mean, I
would rather jet with Jaden Blue than jet little Javonte around there.
Yeah. So
yeah.
You just the more play action you use, the more deception you use, well then the more blitzers you're going to be dealing with, and the safeties and linebackers, they will eat your tiny guys for lunch, which is why I'll continue to say maybe Miles Sanders. I think he signed a 2. I think Miles Sanders is still under contract.
Okay,
and like we said, Phil Maffa is just getting started. We hope.
Okay. So you're going to hear a lot of names thrown out between now and when free agency starts here in a couple of weeks. And Bob, you've outlined before, there aren't just a ton of really sexy names in free agency, unrestricted free agency. But there is one name, and there is a tie-in with Christian Parker since he was most recently in Philly. You sent me some tape this week on a really interesting linebacker and it's not just you. There's a lot of connect the dots here, and Nakobe Dean coming to Dallas from Philly. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I would love it. He obviously is not a flawless player. He's been hurt a fair amount, and that instantly turns people off because we've had injury-prone linebackers over the years by the bushel, including DeMarvion Overshown right now, who we love but has yet to play a full season. And so I always say, if he was a perfect player, then his team doesn't let him out of the building. So you're only a free agent if something has not gone quite perfect usually. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at all the UFAs this season, all over the league, all of them have a slight red tag on them. So I just want to start there. There's no perfect free agent because you don't let those guys off your roster. So once we establish that, I say Nakobe Dean is 25 years old. Since he's been at Georgia, he's always been thought of as a very high IQ, very smart, very able to have the green dot and make sure everybody's in the right spot, get a timeout if I need to, but make adjustments on the fly. So he's your field general. So I want that. I did not have that last year. I also like the way he reads out a play and plays his position well and plays patiently. And sometimes it doesn't show up in the stats because some of those plays I sent you, he's just turning the runner back to his help. He's kind of playing the force, or the contain, if you will, setting an edge sometimes, but also doing it in the interior where you're sending him back to your defensive tackle who's going to make the play. And that's just fundamentally sound defense. So I don't think Nakobe Dean is necessarily the best linebacker in the league, but he's available at a price that is appealing. And then, of course, he is literally Christian Parker's extension onto the field. He has been in Christian Parker's defense for almost his whole career, and that is valuable to me. There are 2 free agents that will be paired with Christian Parker this spring. Nakobe Dean, the consensus says he's the second best linebacker on the market, and Reed Blankenship, which is rated about the 8th consensus high safety. I would not rule out either of them, frankly, because I do think they both are at a price point where you could actually say that's worth doing. And they're also at positions, George, where I don't mind drafting a safety if it's a great one, and I don't mind drafting a linebacker. So like Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs are both extremely interesting to me. But I want to be careful about using those 2 first-rounders on non-premium positions because those can be filled in free agency at the right price. So just to give you the example, there are 4 defensive positions where the Cowboys need help: edge, linebacker, corner, and safety. Well, edge is, aside from quarterback, it's the most expensive position in the NFL.
Yeah.
You will pay so much for an edge. Corner is basically that. But the two cheaper positions are linebacker and safety. So if I have 2 first-round picks and 2 bullets in free agency, then I think I'm going to put my first-round picks on, let's say number 12 goes to the best corner, which is a very good one,
Okay.
and 20 goes to the best edge, which will also be a pretty good one. And so I can get 2 guys there. And then in free agency, maybe at $10 million a year or $12 million a year, I can get Nakobe Dean. And then even less than that, I could maybe get a guy like Reed Blankenship. And maybe I can find my 4 starters from that exact method. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I do think Nakobe Dean would pair well with DeMarvion Overshown. And another thing people will say about Nakobe, George, and you might have saw this on the film, he's a little small. However, in this scheme, I believe the Cowboys are planning on keeping their linebackers clean. And so you don't need a 245-pound linebacker necessarily with again, Big Quinnen and Big Kenny up front. You should be able to have linebackers that are free to run to the ball. And that's why I think Nakobe would fit well here, just like he did in Philadelphia.
Yeah, he's a dog, man. I don't care what his size is as far as height and weight. He fights through blocks. He runs to the ball. He takes good
sniffs
angles.
Things out.
And all of the plays we watched of the All-22 this year of the Cowboys defense, I saw nothing that looked like that. I didn't see one linebacker come even close to playing like that.
That's the again, we'll try not to kick Kenneth Murray every episode, but if Nakobe Dean was out there last year, the defense would have looked way different.
Yes, absolutely. All right, good stuff. Love all that. And I love where we're going next. We're going to start looking at some potential names for the Cowboys to draft this April that can help this defense and help Christian Parker. And we have a very special guest to do that. We roll on through the offseason on Football Friends, and before you know it, the NFL draft is going to be here. We're through the NFL Combine. And Bob, I lean on you for draft knowledge, and I know you lean on a lot of people. Introduce the world to our special guest right now who's going to set us straight on maybe some potential names for the Cowboys who have 2 first-round picks this year.
Yes, for the last couple years, Dominic Robinson and I have been going through draft guys, and we try to quality control each other. We try to check it out. He was in the game for quite a while. You may remember his work at Florida State many moons ago if you're old like us and old like him. But now he loves watching ball and certainly breaking down the tape. And if I don't get to somebody, like last year, he pulled me aside and said, "Bob, you need to look at Cam Scadaboo." And I'm like, man, I don't know. Okay, I'll try to fit one more in. And boy, am I happy I did, because that ended up being a guy we were pounding the table on in round 3. And of course, the Giants got him, and the rest is history. But I wasn't going to fit him in my 60 profiles until Dominic told me to. So he does great work. We try to check each other's notes. Dominic, how we doing?
Doing great, man. George, I got to thank you for sharing Bob with me. Thanks for having me on. This is, you're so lucky you get to have him once a week, and I get him once a year. During a small period of time during the year, I get to have my football buddy, my draft buddy, and so I'm excited. Once the Super Bowl's over, I get pretty pumped.
Yeah.
Because I get to spend time with Bob, and you're lucky enough you get it every week.
Bob is the best, but you're the best. I've heard your work, and you're awesome. I'm so glad we've got your resources to check in with a few times here before we get to the NFL draft.
roundtable this thing a little bit, and Dominic, we'll start with you. But in terms of obviously from a Cowboys perspective on here, they've got some good ammunition this year. Not the greatest, because they traded away round 2 for Quinnen and round 3 for George Pickens. Those are obviously fantastic football players, so we're not complaining. But it does make the draft situation a little trickier. 12 and 20, though, those are some very, very nice pieces of gold that we probably have to turn into starters if we can on this defense. But just in general, where's your head at with regards to the Cowboys trying to team build with what they have to work with and what the draft offers this year?
So, first of all, I think this will be interesting. It's always interesting to see the direction the Cowboys go, just because they always go somewhere. I listened to our episode on the Cowboys draft last year, Bob, and we talked for probably an hour about wide receivers at pick 12. And not only did they not go wide receiver, but they went offensive guard.
How about a guard?
Yeah.
Which is kind of nothing like a wide receiver. So so it's always fun to kind of, we spend a bunch of time trying to guess what they're going to do. This year we're thinking defensive player, or a bevy of defensive players maybe. And so I will say that if that is the case, this would be the year. I think the talent in this year's draft is very slanted towards defensive players.
Yes.
There's more defense than offense. Easy to say, obviously, normally when there's no quarterback names, and, quarterbacks usually drive most of the conversation around surrounding draft talk. So when there aren't a bunch of them, then it's not as sexy, it's not as fun. And so this is one of those years where I think if they were going to do what we want them to do or what we think they're going to do, this would be the year to do that, which would be go defense.
Dominic, we were talking last week about that pick at 20, the second first-round pick the Cowboys have. Bob brought up a really good point. If you're trying to rebuild this defense, and also if we understand we're operating under a 2 to 3 year window here for Dak and CD and everybody, you want you want 2 starters out of this first round who are ready to go. Is there a decent chance? Certainly at 12 you can get that. How good do you think that chance is at 20? And if it's just kind of, I think he could step right in, are you more inclined to trade down and get value? I know it depends on what's still on the board, but that whole thing I think is a really philosophical, interesting question for this team.
I almost like to ask it in a hypothetical way. Would you rather have 2 in the top 20, or would you rather have 3 in, say, the top 50? Like as a general rule, and there's a way to look at it, George, where they have almost 2,200 points this year in draft currency, but 1,200 would be that 12th pick, 850 would be that 20th pick, and then all of their other picks combined only amount to roughly 130 points in draft currency. So if you cut it into a pie, that 12th pick is 55% of your draft, and the 20th pick is 40% of your draft. That's 95% of your draft in those 2 picks, even though you have 5 more picks in the draft. So if you look at it that way, should we cut those pie pieces into smaller pieces, Dominic, or do you say, well, no, I want 2 dogs in the top 20, and maybe if a couple quarterbacks and a couple Jeremiah Love, maybe Kenyon Sadiq, maybe a couple offensive tackles, can I actually get 2 of the top, say, 12 defensive players on my defense for next September, and I just stay there and draft? That's kind of the bigger discussion, I guess.
Yeah, I've been playing around with the simulator, and I cannot stop trading one of those picks, 12 or 20. That makes sense to me. Now, the reason why that makes sense to me is I sort of have this. It's not an actual, boulder or stopgap at 12, but somewhere around 12 for me every year is where I feel like the game changers stop.
Yeah.
Right around where Micah went. Like the pick after Micah for me is like after that. I'm still getting I'm not saying there aren't great players. Obviously there are. But usually right about 12 is where it's like, okay, this guy's sort of a franchise, a foundational changer, after that. So for me, between like 13 and 24 is when you really want to start to look at trying to get multiple players for those spots in my head. And then I feel like at the end of like at the high 20s, you usually get great value also. So for me, between like 13 to 24, they're going to cost too much for the actual production that you're going to get out of them typically. Now, that's not, again, it's not an ironclad rule, and obviously the years change. But for me, if you get to 12 and there isn't a game changer, go get yourself another pick in that top 80, top 100, and you're sitting in, and you're really, really looking at doing some damage there. Or even at 20, if you can trade back and go get two players in the higher 20s, lower 30s, you're really looking at like doing some damage by going and getting really comparable players. It's going to be the same player you're going to get at 20. It's going to be the same player you're going to get at 32 or 38, but you're going to be able to get two of them. That's the way that I look at it, is like from about 20 to 40, for 20 to 50, those players are essentially the same value, but they're not in draft capital. I can go give you because your team might need a player at 20 that you can't get at whatever spot you're at. So like the Raiders, for instance, they have 1 and 38, I think it is. So they would want to move up to get into the 20s for sure, because they just don't have one. They don't have a pick after that first pick. So a team like that would be, a great team to look at.
Yeah, and then what I tried to do last time with George was actually I sit at 20, but I trade back from 12. And if I trade back from 12, then I can get like 19 and 50 or 22 and 53 from another team, and now I've got 20, 22 and 53, and to me that gets me really excited, although I probably miss a chance at getting one of those top 3 corners. So it's give and take, and you probably don't want to just draft for need, guys, but you do have to think about 55% is in that 12th pick and another 40% is in that 20th pick. And then everything else we have in this draft, even my 4th round pick, these are table scraps. They might turn into something, but odds are through 100 years of the draft, odds are that your pick at 112 is going to be a guy that covers kicks for a couple years and then disappears. There are exceptions every year, but you have to play the large samples if you're going to try to figure out. Well, I'll put it another way. Almost every study ever says the key to being a smart drafting team is to just have more picks. Mm-hmm. It's a quantity thing, not a quality thing, almost every time.
Yeah, for sure. It's that pick at 12, man. If you can get back from that, the way that I look at it is if there's not a game changer, if Arvell Reese isn't there, which I don't think he will be, somebody like that, an edge, one of those Ohio State edges that you like somebody that is just, you feel like most likely is going to be a Pro Bowler in year one. If that guy's not there, man, if you can trade back, you're going to get a really, really good, a day one starter, and you're going to end up getting 2 of them for that spot, and you're going to have a lot of people a lot of teams that are going to want that spot because of the players that will be sort of a need for their teams.
If they do stay at 12, you guys want to throw out just a couple of names, because it seems more likely to me that names like Caleb Downs at safety, David Bailey at edge are gone by the time 12 runs around. And it looks like from all the mocks I've looked at that you could get the top corner perhaps at number 12, correct? Do you think you have a better chance of getting the corner you need with a coach now who is very keen on defensive backs, I would think, and I wonder what Christian Parker's influence is going to be there. But is that more likely someone like McCoy out of Tennessee or something like that at 12?
So I personally don't. It's too rich for my blood. I don't like a corner at 12.
Okay.
I don't see a player of that value, of that ability. Now, I haven't dove into the corners yet for Bob and I's episode on secondary, but I sort of live in that space, year round. But as of right now, there's no corner that I like at 12.
Interesting.
That I would take. Yeah. To me, if there's a corner there, then I'm definitely trading that spot. If that's the best player left when that spot gets to me.
Yeah, I think there are 2 guys I would have a hard time walking away from, and I'm just going to assume, first of all, that the top 2 edges that I've seen, maybe 3, well, probably 3 edges that are all top guys who I don't anticipate getting out of the top 10. Would be David Bailey from Texas Tech, who I love, absolutely love him. He's a fantastic player. Ruben Bain from Miami, who's different but also fantastic. And anybody who watched college football last year doesn't need to be introduced to either of those guys. And then Arvell Reese, who is one of 3 Ohio State, maybe 4 Ohio State first rounders off their defense, and each one of them. You just see how Ohio State's good every year is that they just, they don't mess with the portal hardly at all. I know they won the national title with a quarterback out of the portal last year, but just in general, they just go recruit future NFL superstars, often the sons of other Buckeyes, and they just keep that conveyor belt going. Arvell Reese is a very, very special player, and I think he'll just. I don't want to use Micah Parsons' name very often when we look at edges, but there is something about Arvell Reese that does make you see Micah. Now, when you get past that group, there are 2 guys that I would have a hard time walking away from at 12 if somehow they fell, and they both play positions that don't often get pushed up the draft board. The guys who get pushed up the draft board every year are the edge rushers, the quarterbacks, and the wide receivers. Every year it happens. And these guys, Sonny Styles from Ohio State is, I was trying to sell you on Nakobe Dean. If I knew I could get Sonny Styles at 12, I would not be trying to sell you on Nakobe Dean.
Okay.
Sonny Styles, to me, at 240, at 6'4", the way he runs the middle of the field for Ohio State, if I could turn in the card right now at 12 and he's there, I think he's a transformational, run and hit linebacker. I'm not quite ready to say he's Fred Warner, but that's what I'm talking about. That's the type of guy you build a defense around at that position, and I'd love to hear Dominic's thoughts on him. And then the other one is even more of a pipe dream, and that's his teammate Caleb Downs, the safety. The thing about that, though, and I maybe this is me trying to will it to happen, but we have seen some unbelievable safeties get to 12. If you want to talk about Derwin James, I think 17, and I thought Derwin James was the best player I'd ever seen. Like I don't know what you thought of him, Dominic, but I remember thinking Derwin James is the freaking dude of all dudes. The other one is Hamilton from Notre Dame, who went to
Kyle
Baltimore. What
Kyle
pick did he end
Hamilton.
up? Did he go 12 or 14 or something like that?
I want to say 14. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, safeties slide. Will Caleb Downs slide? Probably not. But most of the time, safeties don't go top 5. And so most of the teams in the top 10 need offensive line help every year. And so I haven't really looked at the offensive line at all. So anyway, those are the two names, George, where I would be saying, okay, I ain't trading back from 12 at all on Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles, because if I could start my draft with either one of them, I will say my draft is going to be great, whatever I do the rest of the weekend.
Boy, that's interesting about safety, and you're right. They do seem to slide. Dominic, do you think that's changing now with a re-emphasis on the running game in the NFL? To me, safety is corners obviously more valuable, but has the value of a really good safety become more important in today's NFL?
Yeah, here's what's going to be really exciting about the Caleb Downs deal is he may be the first nickel to get drafted as a, sort of franchise top 10 pick. Like we've been saying for a couple years, like nickel is base, but we haven't quite shown that in draft value, where your nickel is going to get paid like your top end shutdown corner. We haven't seen that because nickel traditionally is a safety, or it's your third best corner. Well, that can't be the case anymore, because the Kyle Hamiltons of the world and the Derwin Jameses of the world are now your best players on your team, period. So, but we have not seen that yet in the draft, because the college game is, hasn't quite produced a player like Caleb Downs in a while. Kyle Hamilton was a traditional middle of the field safety that we thought had the ability. Derwin James was a quarter safety that we thought had nickel hybrid play all over the place. Buda Baker for UW. These guys didn't get drafted as quote unquote nickels, but now they're the best in the game playing nickel, which is really a linebacker. And so I will be so excited. Now, I do want Caleb to slide to the Cowboys at 12. And you're right, Bob. Traditionally, that position slides. But is that position no longer what we've known it to be? And will the NFL show us that with the way that they draft him? Are they going to draft him like he's a traditional safety, which he is not? This guy is an absolute freak. He's very Derwin James, as like you asked if I was excited when Derwin James came out. Hell yeah, I was, because he was everything. He wasn't a corner. I didn't know what he was, and that's right. I love those guys. I love hybrid players. They're a guy that's just a player, just a ball player. That's my favorite kind. So. And that's what Caleb Downs is, and so I would love for him to go in the top 10. Because I think that would show like the evolution of the game, which is, again, we've been saying nickel is base for a while, but we do not draft that way. You still go draft your shutdown corner separate from your middle of the field safety.
And the Cowboys haven't invested in safety since Roy Williams from Oklahoma, and so, and honestly, it shows on their defenses that they have very ordinary safety play, and God bless Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson and many of these guys they've had over the years. Your Gerald Sensabaugh and your Barry Churches, and just go down the line, but it feels like it's one of the last things on their shopping list. And so if you get a dynamic Buda Baker type, who can just do so much and just attack all over the field and also be so smart about the way he plays the position. And there's you dream of guys like that. Now, here's the thing, George. I think both of those names it is a greater than 0 possibility at 12 because I do try not to use the consensus board, but I do think the consensus board gives us an idea of what most people are thinking. And there's a lot of information out there. And on the consensus board right now, the combine is this week, so this could change very, very quickly once the combine, guys start working out, and we know those Ohio State guys usually kill their workouts, and so they will shoot up perhaps. But Downs hits at 8, then Jeremiah Love, then Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver, Arizona State, then Mansour Delane from LSU via Virginia Tech at corner, and then at number 12, Ohio State's Sonny Styles. Mm-hmm. So, Dominic, have you got much on Sonny Styles yet?
Yeah, so I was going to say for what I'm looking at in terms of the tape, what the tape tells me, and what sort of is out there, guys that I would no doubt take that have the potential to actually slide were Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, and I guess it's the Ohio State trio, and Caleb Downs. I also think that what scares me with the Cowboys is Mekhi Lemon could potentially slide there, and Jordan Tyson could potentially slide there. And just knowing Jerry and knowing the Cowboys, I don't see him passing up Jordan Tyson if he's there at 12. Now, again, I don't know what's going to happen with George Pickens. Have they shown what they're going to do, their hand there, or?
Oh, he's definitely tagged.
He's going to be tagged.
He's going to be tagged. Okay. Yeah. So, I guess they'd probably have to pass there. But yeah, I think if those three guys are there and there is a possibility that one of the three will slide there, you got to take them. If it's not one of them, I don't necessarily see, anyone else that's a position of need that they would actually, entertain.
And then, so let's try to fit in 2 more topics, George, if you think we have time. At 20, again, we're spitballing here, but if I were to probably figure out what I'm getting at 12, which would probably be, is Downs there, is Styles there? If not, I'm probably leaning towards one of the corners, even though Dominic may challenge me on that. Let's just spitball at 20 what you might want to do if we're not trading back, because, of course, we have to say it again. In order to trade back, somebody's got to want to trade up, and you have to be prepared to take your best guy. This is where I do think the edge class is interesting.
Yep.
And I do think you will have some options there. And so I want to present, just based on the consensus board, the idea of like Cassius Howell from A&M, Keldrick Falk from Auburn, and Akeem Mesidor, Miami. And this is where we can kind of get into the window conversation with Dominic, which is, if I'm trying to win in these next 3 years, do I mind that Akeem Mesidor is darn near 25 years old?
Me personally, no. No. I'm going to go and have him play ball for me from 25 to 30 and play his best ball and let the chips lie where they are in that second contract, and probably let him walk after that one because he played so great for us. That's the hope. So I will say, if I'm the Cowboys GM, I'm trying to, if I get to 12 and there is none of those Ohio State guys, I trade back, and Mesidor's my first pick. That's what I've been looking at, and I love that. I freaking love. I'm taking him all the way. You asked about the corners. If the Clemson kid is there, Avian Terrell.
Yeah.
If he's there, I'm taking him. If not, then I'm trading. I'm going to try and trade that pick. Hopefully, if I took my 12th pick, if I got one of those Ohio State guys there, and then I have Terrell at 20, I'll take it. But if I don't, there's no one else there that I love, and so I probably then try trade that 20th pick. But I love Messidor at the 20 spot. I think that's a perfect fit. I think you love what you get. Caden McDonald, maybe from Ohio State, is great there. But that's sort of what I'm thinking at 20. You again, I want to trade one of these 2 picks.
Yes.
If I can. But if those guys are there, then I'm not going to trade it. I'm going to go ahead and take them.
I had the thought that sometimes if you want defense, you want offensive players being taken off the board, so defensive players drop down. In this case, would it also be decent along those lines, Dominic, if you want to get more value and trade the 20th pick, or if you wanted to trade 12 and get something around the 20th selection, that, someone like Jeremiah Love sliding to 12 may make the Cowboys' phone ring more when they get there, and they could get a better deal. What's better?
Or does it make their hand twitch to turn in the card and go get him?
Yeah, maybe. But I just wonder what's better, an offensive player sliding that has value or an offensive player going in front of number 12 to bounce a defensive player down? Which one do you think is better?
That's a good what do you think, Bob? That's a really good question.
Well, I mean,
guess it depends on who it is and all that.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I feel like offensive line and wide receiver and Jeremiah Love could all be that type of guy. And I guess what you're cheering for if you're a Cowboy fan is those are the types of guys who have a good month here in March, combine and then workouts, because honestly, it's not crazy. I think we're on the same page, Dominic and I, that of the top 50 players, 30 of them, maybe 35, feel like defensive players. But when you talk about the top 11, you can see scenarios where most of those teams are so awful on both sides of the ball that they will fall in love with Mayoga, the tackle from Miami, or Lomu from Utah, or some of these offensive line prospects, because their quarterbacks are getting killed, or they need a quarterback, and maybe there's a second quarterback that can get into this top 11 mix. I don't know. And then those wide receivers, and then Kenyon Sadiq, this generational tight end from Oregon. And so you start putting those guys together, and that's where defenders can slide, but also trade up opportunities will present themselves. And I think the Cowboys would lean to trying to turn those 2 picks into 3 or 4 picks based on what we know from Dallas, which is they do love to trade back when the opportunity presents itself, especially when they feel the stress of, we actually need 5 new guys on our defense, not 2. We're not 2 players away. We need 5. And so how do we do that? Well, let's sign 1 or 2 free agents for the first time in a dozen years, but then let's also, try to get 3 or 4 bites of the apple in the first 2 days of the draft.
Boy, and it probably applies every year. You've got to hit, but given the misses this team has had in the last 3 or 4 years, they have got to hit, whether it's 12 and 20 or it's 12 and whatever. They've traded down to 27 and they've added something else in the second round. Wherever these picks are falling, man, they've got to hit on these Mama Bears.
There's no doubt, and maybe that's where we can wrap this up, Dominic, with a quick overview of those first 3 picks from the 2025 draft. Because last spring, we were dreaming at this point last spring of like Tet McMillan making it to the Cowboys at. Was that also number 12?
That was at 12, yep.
Yeah, okay. So we were like, man, can Tet make it to 12? And he almost did, but then Carolina always takes our guy. and he was really good this year. I think he's going to have an unbelievable career. And therefore the Cowboys did confuse us by taking another guard. We don't mind Tyler Booker. We think he's going to be a heck of a player, but I'll stop using the pronoun we, and I want to hear kind of a brief thought on each of the top 3 guys. So Tyler Booker, what did we all think of his first season?
So this was so interesting. Like I said, we were waiting. We talked whiteout for months,
We did.
And we at that spot, there was, obviously they took T-Mac. Matthew Golden went to the Packers. That's right. He ended up, so T-Mac had 77 catches. Matthew Golden had 33 catches. We were pretty excited about Matthew Golden going to the Cowboys. There's obviously a big difference between him and T-Mac. But that was interesting. And then they were talking Walter Nolan in that spot.
Oh, yeah.
So as mad as we are, or however we feel about Tyler Booker, I don't know how you guys feel. I think he had a great season for a rookie guard in the position. I mean, you look at the success the Cowboys had. They're in the top 4 in most analytic categories. Like, it was a good offense. And to do that with a rookie guard, he gave up 3 sacks, but he only missed 3 games. So you're going to get a kid and he misses 3 games. He plays 1,000 snaps, which is the same as Tyler Smith played. Tyler Smith also gives up 3 sacks. This guy's a pillar of your offense. So as a rookie, that's a really, really good year, man. And let me just say this. And Walter Nolan played 6 games this year. So so how what do you want? What do you want to? Would you like to trade with the Arizona Cardinals and take Walter Nolan back in that spot?
I feel great about Booker, and George, I don't know where you net out on him. I feel like we gotta stop taking guards and non-premium positions in the top 20 of the draft. I'm willing to make exceptions, but if Tyler Smith and Tyler Booker are both guards, and then we miss on Mozzie Smith, and you start looking at how you're using your first round picks, you just have to really make sure that you're using them on the positions that determine wins and losses the most. So I think Tyler Booker's going to be a great guard. I just wonder how smart that is, when you say, is he the 12th most impactful wins and losses piece to the puzzle that will come out of this draft? And it's nothing against him. He appears to be a beast.
Yeah, I love him, and I love the person too. I think he's been great for the locker room, and that's one thing I think Schottenheimer's big on. And even they were doing some of this before he got here. Was what kind of guy are you? And I think he fits that profile of great guy. And I know a couple of guys that they passed on because they didn't feel like it was going to be their kind of guy. So, yeah, I love that pick.
Okay, so real fast now, on Ezeraku and Ravel, I think they're both absolute positive keys to, A, making the 2025 draft smell good, and B, making the defense the amount that they could transform this defense if they are dudes is off the charts. We think Ezeraku can be one. We have no idea on Ravel, from what I can tell, or Revel. I'm not even positive how to say his name, which is never a good sign after 1 year in the league. But they both play premium positions. They both seem to slide for various reasons. Ezeraku, it's a little cloudier on why he slid. At his spot, I do think that is clearly best player available. And maybe a couple thoughts on each of those, Dominic.
Yeah, so Ezeraku, I think, is going to be great. Or maybe not great, but for that spot, that was a good value, good pick. I think what we saw from him this year was encouraging. Ravel, I'm worried about. I mean, we don't know because he didn't play very much. But I don't feel good about him. I will say this, and Mike Bob, I think you'll probably remember our buddy Mike Green.
Yes. Marshall. Mike
Green from Marshall had a phenomenal season for the Ravens, and he was there for Ravel's pick. He was, I believe he was 77 or something like that, and Ravel was 76. So, so that one's gonna bother me a little bit, It just that Mike Green played 700 snaps this year. It had really good pressure numbers, had some sacks. Like, he did some really, really good things, even more than Ezeraku. So, you had a chance to go get him, and Bob, we loved him. Remember, I believe he was both our number one edge.
He went after Ezeraku at 59 to the Ravens.
Oh, was it 59? Okay.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure we clean that up a little bit. Ravel went 76 Ezeraku. Yeah. So you would be picking either Green or Ezeraku, and if I can go through the notes in my head, I just don't think the Cowboys were comfortable with the off-field stuff with Green, right, relative to Ezeraku.
Yeah.
I think Green had some, how we say, things to investigate by the personnel department before they picked him. But absolutely.
Wait, are you sure you're not mixing him with Pierce with the Tennessee?
I got Mike Green, 59. But yes, if you want to go back to Pierce, who went to Atlanta back in the first round at 26, very big questions. Boy, and honestly, this isn't a bad thought to close on.
I didn't remember Mike Green having off the field stuff. I remember Pierce, but I didn't remember Green.
I believe a girl had some accusations.
Okay.
I don't remember if they were true or not, but Pierce had questions, and of course Pierce is in jail today. So that's how we can say, George, that's a bad first round pick for the Falcons.
That's a miss there. In jail. That's a miss there for sure.
But Ravel, I mean, look, he was hurt. We knew he would probably be redshirted, almost like Mike Nolan. And or Walter Nolan, excuse me. And when he got out there, it looked like he was kind of Trayvon Diggs like. He wasn't confident in his coverage, and he wasn't really interested in tackling. And those are two things that make us nervous if you're a Cowboys fan watching corners play. Is can this guy cover well and with confidence? And also, will he help us tackle somebody, please? No more of this Ole BS. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's a project for Christian Parker, I guess,
that's
this
right.
offseason, to try to get him on the field and play with some confidence. Dominic, man, thanks for joining us. That was awesome. And, we hope to talk to you some more before the draft.
Appreciate it, guys. It was great. Thanks for sharing Bob with me, Ja. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, you bet. You bet. That's Dominic Robinson, draft expert, joining us here on Football Friends. Thanks to our producer, Peter Welton. For Bob Sturm, I'm George Dunham. We'll talk to you next time on The Musers, the podcast, Cowboys edition, Football Friends.